Hey everybody, Tall Family Films here. Today we are replacing struts on a Nissan Titan. There are so many things that got answered for me doing this about, whether you need to remove the sway bar end link and whether you needed to remove control arms, how hard is this job? And the job turned out to be extremely easy. I actually timed myself. It took 21 minutes for me to replace the strut. So this is a very simple job. I do suggest that you have an impact wrench, but an impact wrench is not required, and you can do this with a breaker bar and some good leverage. And while I'm continuing to get the wheel off here, I don't have any aspirations about retiring by YouTube income, but it does help as a content creator if you subscribe to my channel, not just mine, but any videos that you're watching where you're learning to do something. I've done this thousands of times and I was never clicking subscribe, but when I became a content creator, I realized the importance in doing that. So go ahead and click subscribe, and remember to do that on other videos you're watching as well. Okay, so to do this job, there's one 19mm bolt down at the bottom of the strut assembly, and it is right here. And then there's three 14mm bolts, at least if it's a stock strut, these will be 14mm up at the top. There's three of them. There is one in the middle that's kind of sticking way up. Do not undo that bolt. Holy crap, you'd never get the strut out if you did that. So that's certainly not a good way to go. All right, so I'm taking a 19mm socket with an extension on it, and I'm going to use a wrench to hold the bolt while I turn the nut. Okay, so now we have to get the bolt out, and there's a little bit of pressure on it because there's a gigantic spring sitting on top of it pushing down. But between you being able to maneuver the control arm up and down by moving the brake rotor, putting a little pressure on it, and simply shaking the shock itself, the strut, up and down, you can create enough gap usually to get it out. If you can't, then just take a screwdriver, small screwdriver, smaller than the threads of the bolt, and just tap the very end of the bolt and knock it back through. In my case, I could actually turn the bolt by hand. I was not able to do this on both sides, so one side was a little tougher for me to get than the other, probably from the angle that the truck was sitting, but simply by working that bolt back out, it was easy. All right, so now going after the nuts at the top, like I said, they're 14mm. I'm using a power ratchet. It certainly makes a lot less knuckle busting in this small space. So I highly suggest that. Again, don't touch the bolt that's in the middle. Unless you're using a deep socket, it wouldn't fit anyway, so you'll kind of know that something's weird about that one. This back bolt, the one that's farthest back nut, the one that's farthest away from us, we're not going to undo it all the way. And this is very important. Nothing catastrophic happens, but if you undo it all the way, this shock the strut will drop down. We won't be able to get it past this sway bar end link right here. So, keeping the last nut in place, there's a little trick for you being able to get this out. You can take the sway bar end link off, but there's always a risk that that boot will spin forever and you'll never get the nut back onto the sway bar end link. So mine are new, that wouldn't happen here, but I just wanted to know if this would work without me removing the sway bar end link. So, turns out that it does. Okay, so we just need to loosen the back nut. We can take it pretty much all the way down to the last couple of turns before we would know it would fall off. Okay, so let me reposition the camera here. I want you to see as we go past the sway bar end link that there is room for this to be done. So support the strut from underneath so that you can get the last nut all the way off, okay? So once that nut is removed, then you need to support the strut. I used my right hand to do this, and I pushed down just slightly on the rotor with my left hand, and it just popped right out, right past the sway bar end link. So very easy job. Do not go dropping the sway bar end link or control arms or anything like that to get this job done. It's really that simple. Okay, so like you should always do, we're comparing the old with the new. They're laying in an identical position, and they look to be pretty much the same. This yellow sticker, by the way, is telling you the same thing I told you earlier. Don't undo that middle bolt. Okay. So now we're ready to try to put this thing back in. Okay, so this camera angle is a lot better for you to see what's going on as we put the new strut assembly back in. One thing about Moog, by the way, if you're using Moog parts, they always seem to go up in the bolt size, kind of no matter what it is you're working on. So I used 14 millimeter to take these off, 15 millimeter to put them on. All right, so when you're realigning the strut to get it back in, you need one of those bolt holes. Well, you're going to need them all three to kind of line up. You can feel them from the inside, the top when you're putting your hands in. You can feel where the bolt holes are. And what I'm trying to figure out here is how can I push down on the rotor while pushing up on the strut. And so this is kind of a little dance here to get this to work. It does take me about a minute to figure out how to best make this fall into place. It's a little bit frustrating, I have to say, but I used my foot here to push down on the rotor. That's pushing the sway bar end link down, the whole lower control arm and everything is falling down just a little bit. But it doesn't quite fall into place for me. So I need to find another method, and that method turns out to be brute force. It's actually the sway bar itself that's in the way here, not the sway bar end link, but just a little bit of influence and solves the problem. So that was very fortunate. Now we just need to align the 3 bolts up top to go in the 3 holes that are made for them. Again, this is a little bit frustrating. This is also a little bit of a dance trying to get that to happen. I have a nut in my hand waiting for the opportunity to use it. So I'm feeling the holes in the frame, and then I'm also reaching down to feel the studs underneath it. There it goes. It's simply, just a matter of frustration and twisting and turning, but you can make it happen. All right, so once all of the nuts are on, I would not tighten them all the way, by the way. I would just tighten them, part of the way, because we're going to need to still put the bolt in down at the bottom. So you will be reusing the same 19 millimeter bolt. I highly suggest you put thread locker on here. By the way, the torque spec for this bottom bolt is 100 foot-pounds, and the torque spec for the 3 nuts at the top is 25 foot-pounds. So again, I need to line up the hole here. So again, this is just manipulation. I just shook the rotor to get it to line up, and it's close. It's not perfect. Of course, then it's too far, and I pushed it too much, and then I didn't push it enough. And so this goes back and forth for just a few minutes. But again, this entire process is about 20 minutes. So I have to say, as far as car repair goes, this is certainly one that I would do again. Okay, I think we've watched me be frustrated with this long enough, so let's speed it up here. I used a rubber mallet just to tap the strut in and out, and then use the rubber mallet to just tap the bolt all the way in. Now, I don't know if there is a better method for how I did this, but I just know this one worked. I didn't tighten the bottom bolt down. After getting it through, I went back and tightened the top, and then I went back to tighten the bottom one after that. Okay, so then I'm bringing in a torque wrench here. It's set to 25 foot-pounds. Make sure I'm tightening, not loosening. And that's what I'm actually doing at the second, is figuring out if I'm going right or left. Sorry for the sweat pouring out of my gloves. I know that's kind of disgusting. It was really hot this day. All right, so they're all three torqued. You know what would have been a really great idea was if I had applied Loctite to those threads, and I didn't. So I went back and did that, but I'm not going to forget on the bottom. So I'm putting a little bit here onto that bolt. Thread locker just needs to go like in a line across one part of the threads. It doesn't need to go all the way around it. The bolt, when it or the nut when it turns, will actually spread the rest of the thread locker liquid around the rest of the bolt. Okay, so then the last thing is getting this bottom bolt tight. I'm going to use an impact wrench to do this initially, and then I'll go back with a torque wrench and make sure I've got it to 100 foot-pounds. And again, you will need a wrench, just like we needed a wrench to loosen this bolt. You'll need a wrench to get it tight again. And after that, you should come back with a torque wrench. I don't show that in this particular video, but I do go back and torque that to 100 foot-pounds. And that's the whole job. So this one was actually really fun to do. It wasn't an incredibly difficult job. If this video helped you, you could really help me by subscribing to the channel like we talked about and giving this video a thumbs up. Thank you very much.